Welcome to the highlights reel for StraightTalk. It's a brand new show where the panellists are unashamedly and unapologetically social conservatives. On StraightTalk, we discuss social issues that matter, without constraint, without compromise, and without government funding dictating to us what we should or shouldn't say. Our panel is Ashley Church, Christine Rankin, Ronji Tanielu, Alfred Nato, and Bruce Logan, all well-known names in the social conservative world. Here's a clip from our first show. It's a discussion amongst the panel regarding gender ideology being included in this year's census questions, not only for adults, but also for young children in schools. Before you fill out the form, folks, you need to figure out firstly your gender and then your sex at birth, because apparently they are totally different. Let's just have a look at the forms, number 50 there, and you'll see there, I mean, it's right at the start of the census. What is your gender? And it's either male, female, another gender, and then what was your sex at birth. Apparently they're different. Ronji, can you give us some idea of which box we should tick?
Well, don't tick the gender ideology box. I think that's the key. I think the whole thing is ridiculous, and we need good stats to determine public funding and everything else that we need as a good functioning country. I think quickly, I know time's short, it was ridiculous. I'm not going to fill out the gender ideology question. I'm going to pick the one that I want to do.
Okay, now, Bruce, there has been some concern that if you don't fill out the gender ideology question, then they will just take whichever tick you put in the birth, sex at birth, and that will be your gender ideology. I mean, what is StatsNZ trying to do?
Well, we're getting a situation where we're being seduced into thinking about what a human being is by the use of words that actually don't mean what they are declared to mean. One sex is very obvious, that one is either a man or a woman. Somehow or other we have this invention of gender as though it has some kind of validity in itself, rather than just somehow related to that some people behave like women, some people behave like men, and so on. So that we have got the idea that gender has become hardwired into our culture in a way that's now become impossible or very, very difficult to talk about the obvious difference between gender and sex, and they become identical almost. So,
Ashley, should we just ignore the census? I mean, legally we have to fill it in, but are we buying into the ideology by filling it in? Because ironically, you don't have to fill in the religious question.
Yeah, so Ronji's right. Basically, if you're watching this, don't tick the one. Don't tick the one that doesn't apply. But I'm not as horrified by this as by anybody else, for the simple reason that this is an inevitable consequence of the position that nations are taking at the moment. So the census question and the fact that this is included in stats questions is simply a consequence of all that other stuff. And if we're going to resolve it, if we're going to fix this, you don't fix it by not answering that question in the census, although that's the right thing to do. You fix it by taking it back to the politics and getting people of good conscience and decent people in Parliament who are actually going to stop this nonsense.
Okay, Christine, I know that you're a grandmother. We found out that kids are doing a school census, which is being used in primary schools for as young as 7 years old, hosted by Auckland Uni Department of Statistics, StatsNZ, and the Ministry of Education. And one of the questions they have to do, where are we? We are slide number 52. They have to answer this question. Oh, well, this was the question in 2019. Are you male, female? So that was pretty easy. But then in the last census, they're asked this: what is your gender? Remember, this is 7, 8, 9-year-olds. What is your gender? Male, female, another gender? Miss, what's another gender? Or skip the question. Why should I skip the question? Don't I have a gender? I mean, is this confusing for your grandkids?
Yeah, and I think it's child abuse. It's 7 years old. Why on earth would you want to confuse their little minds by asking such a question that they couldn't possibly understand? And look, I want to acknowledge that sometimes nature gets things wrong, and there are people caught in these situations, and it's horrible. I just think that's a terrible thing to have to face. But this is going to extremes that are absolutely unbelievable. A friend told me recently that her 15-year-old daughter was given at school 29 choices about what gender they might be. 29 choices, and they had to think about which one it was that they felt they were. What's wrong with us?
Well, I think we should be more upset that there are only 29, because I heard there were 112. I mean, what's going on? That school is just falling short.
They're way behind, obviously, way behind.
I know. Alfred, have you had any interaction with StraightNZ? I mean, have they been overtaken by activists, or are they simply not standing up to activists?
Oh, look, the truth is that they've been driven by a political agenda. That's the bottom line. And, Ashley's right. Because that ideology has just driven right the way through, they've now become the social and the moral police. The concern I have, there's a Latin word that educationalists know called loco parentis, which is, in the place of the parent. And that's a high level of trust that parents give educators, to care for their children and that they shall do no harm. Now, that's just been taken out of control. And I just think it's time now. It's a bit like the question, right? Because the truth is we'd get data, we'd get this information, but we forgot to ask what were the questions that were being asked. And so I think that it absolutely needs to be challenged. And parents actually have the right to be able to do that. You don't have to wait for a politician to do it. I think if parents and their boards of trustees need to start to ask the question of their schools, and look, under tomorrow's schools, even though with the changes that have happened under Hipkins, there's still an opportunity for parents to be able to have some autonomy to actually ask the school to be able to remove certain parts of the curriculum that they don't agree with.
Okay, and that leads to this question that Erica has asked us on Facebook. Has the census gone out to primary and intermediate and high school? Yes, it's available to all the schools, but the schools decide whether they use it or not. So it's a little bit like the relationship, sexuality, education. Most schools don't want a bar of it, but check whether your school has anything to do with it. Straight Talk will return on the 27th of March, Monday nights at 8 p.m. You can watch on our website, familyfirstnz, or on our YouTube channel or our Facebook page. Join the conservative conversation every Monday night at 8 p.m, back on the 27th.